everybody, it's Alan Brochstein coming to you from Houston, Texas, and 420 Investors soon, and new Cannabis Ventures now. Let me start with what I mean by 420 Investor soon. I left Benzinga, and I'm not going to call them jerks, but they are. But I'm moving to Seeking Alpha, and I'm within 2 months of going live publicly there. And I'm very excited about it. And I won't say the bad things I could say about Benzinga. I'll let them sue me. We'll see. I'm here to talk about the cannabis market, which I've been warning you was suspicious when it was up a lot in January. In fact, it peaked on February 2nd. And we're down over 20% since then. And we're now down year to date by about 9%, I think. So in this YouTube, I want to go over the important news from last week for both the market and for the focus list that I follow. My focus list is now 27 names. I removed Charlotte's Web and Goodness Growth this week. Doesn't mean I don't pay attention to them, but I won't pay as much attention. So this week, the big news was Michigan. Wow. And most people view this market negatively because prices are plunging. And the market has been in disarray. And if you think about it, the world's biggest cannabis market, California, has been in disarray too. Michigan had a medical program and it moved to adult use, and it's doing really well. Medical, it's not as bad as Illinois, but medical's plunging. I mean, it's almost as bad as Illinois. The overall sales in February, which were reported yesterday, maybe it was the day before. No, yesterday. 216 million in February. That was up 4%. Now, I don't know if you know this, but February is shorter than January by 3 days. And effectively, that is more like 15% on a per day basis. And more importantly than the fact that it jumped after getting softer in January, so it wasn't a record, but it was almost as much as the December record. And more importantly, it was up 40% from a year ago. That's the combined medical and adult use. And that's with medical being way down. Adult use, very strong. So that was the action of the week that was important. I wrote a piece at Seeking Alpha, which I love. I've been writing for them, not the full time, because I did, in the early days of 420 Investor, I did take off from Seeking Alpha. I was busy running my service. But I started writing there again, and this week I shared a piece called Your Cannabis Portfolio Could Ascend with Ascend Wellness. That's one of my favorite stocks. It's not in the Global Cannabis Stock Index. It's not in MSOS. So go figure. I say it's one of my favorite. I do own it in both my model portfolios. I don't own a ton. It's not, but it's not in the index. I own more than the index. All right. So this week, Ascend, speaking of which, reported their Q4 continuing earnings season, and their revenue and adjusted EBITDA were a little bit light. What was really light was their guidance for 2023 of up 15% on revenue and 15% on adjusted EBITDA. And clearly, there's a reason for them to cut their outlook. And part of it is this recent Missouri legalization for adult use is eating into them. This is something I think was priced in, and I've been fearing it. I think others were too. But the other part is, like a lot of cannabis companies, they are trying to generate more cash from operations. And so this means being careful how they spend money, which means less growth probably. So I like it. I wrote the piece right after they reported. Cresco reported a weak quarter at only $200 million revenue. It was down sequentially and down from a year ago, believe it or not. And it was below expectations a little bit. GrowGen exceeded expectations on revenue, but it was a little bit short on adjusted EBITDA, and their outlook was a little cautious, but growing. But the stock pulled back and filled a gap that was left in November. And I will tell you, when I was at Benzinga and had a model portfolio there in November, when it ran up it gapped from $3.45 up, and when it approached almost $5, I sold it, and then it went to $8 and change. So I felt like an idiot, but it's back, and I don't own any GrowGen right now in my model portfolios. Lowell had a big announcement, and it didn't trade much the next day or two, but then Friday the volume was like 500,000 shares, which in dollars isn't a lot. And I'm going to speak with George Allen because I want to make sure I understand this. But from my understanding right now, this was not a surprise that they did something. I think the something that they did is subject to debate, whether it was a good thing for the company or not. And I'm going to talk to George Allen, who was the executive chairman and obviously a director. He has resigned. He and his partners, I guess, at his investment firm are buying. Okay, they had a bunch of debt that was taken on in 2020, or maybe it was in 2021. I don't remember. 2020, I think. Yeah, right near the low in the pandemic. Maybe it was 2021, but they took on a lot of debt to take over the company, and that debt was looming. It was convertible debt, and the stock went from the low 20s or something to $2. And this debt didn't look like a problem at all. It was effectively equity, and now it was looking more like a big problem. Who's going to loan money to Lowell, right, to pay back their debt? And there's a lot of bad action from convertible debt holders in the cannabis space where they basically take over the company and leave them. These are outsiders. No, these were insiders here. And so the debt is gone. That's a good thing. But so is the best asset, Lowell Smokes and 35s. And so remember, Lowell Farms had cut deals with 3 companies, 2 of them publicly traded, Schwaz and Ascend, to use their brand in different states. And that is gone. But Lowell Farms is a California player, and they will still be able to use those brands in California. So the debt is gone, and so is their asset, and so are 100 million shares, which is almost half. Oh my God, 100 million shares! At the current price, that's under $4 million. Why did Geronimo, George's company, take $4 million of equity and this asset in exchange for a lot more debt? It remains to be determined for sure, but I think it's a good thing. I do own Lowell Farms in both my model portfolios, as full disclosure. MAPS reported $49 million in revenue, and I don't know why the stock was tanked to a new all-time low. I like it. I wrote about it for Seeking Alpha in an article on biotech, believe it or not, kind of weird. And the stock made a new low, and it was up big after the report, up double-digit gain. Organogram has a problem with labeling. They have a product that they have been marketing as an extract, but Health Canada thinks it should be an edible, which changes the rules because you can only have 10 milligrams of THC in an edible package. So it could be a little problem for them, not a big problem. It's a bigger problem for Indiva. But anyway, I don't cover Indiva. Tilt Holdings reported a win for its Coda edible brand in Massachusetts at the NE Can Cup is best edible in Massachusetts, in Boston, I think. And they also completed the extension of their debt by a year, and as part of that, they also raised their line of credit by $2.5 million. The best part of the week was their Q4 revenue exceeded $44 million, and I think it's a cheap stock. I don't own any in my model portfolios. Tilray finally passed its amendment to allow them to change their charter, which opens the door to easier to execute M&A. TerrAscend reported a pending move to the TSX, and they'd already talked about that as a possibility, and it's an official thing. And I listened to their call. They're telling the world they expect it to be in June or July. But who knows if the TSX will ultimately sign off on it. It's kind of what the TSX signed off on Canopy growth. And so TerrAscend's got to propose some structural changes, i.e., set up a issue like Canopy growth, which is staying on the TSX. We don't know about the NASDAQ yet. And having potentially a U.S. holding. So, who knows if it's going to happen? I would say who cares, really? I know I don't want to speak badly for Jason Wild, who I really like, but I think he's overweighing what the TSX means. So the company, I don't think they're wrong. I just don't think they're that right. Nobody in the world cares about whether it's CSE listed, and CSE is garbage, in my opinion. A lot of problems with the CSE or TSX. Yeah, it's in Canada, it's a major exchange, but folks, it's in Canada. And I'm sorry to all you Canadians, I love Canada personally, but Canada doesn't really matter. As a matter of fact, TerrAscend's exiting Canada, the Canadian market, except for their cookie store in Toronto. And they announced that in their 10K. And I think they talked about it on the call. And then finally, Village Farms, so I said their 10K. So they reported, TerrAscend did, a pretty decent quarter with revenue at $69 million. And I think TerrAscend is in good position, but I don't own it in any model portfolios right now. And then Village Farms announced a 1 gram pre-roll for Soar, its Soar brand. So that's it on the updates. And let me talk to you about the market. This is running a little bit longer today. We had a lot of news this week. It's earnings season. So the global cannabis stock index made a new all-time low this week. During the day, early in the week, and we held it Friday. And Friday, on a closing basis, 884. That's down. It was down 1.7% last week. The S&P 500 was up 1.4%. So we were down by that index and most stocks. And the S&P 500 feels like it was down, but it was actually up 1.4%. Remember that Friday a week ago, it got hammered. And the index is now down 9% year to date. And if you've been paying attention, you know that I was wrong at mid-year last year. I was looking for the market to begin its recovery, and I felt right in July and August, but then September came. And then October and November were great in the beginning of December, but December was a disaster. And so no, the second half of last year was terrible. Well, now we're down 9% this year, and there's the same trend. January, great. February, okay. March, a disaster. Like I said, we're down 9% year to date. I think we're down more than that. I don't know the exact number, but I want to say 11% roughly in March. And the S&P 500 is up 2% year to date, I think. I don't know if I checked that. I think I did check it. All right, so finally, well, not finally, next, as I've talked about, I run 2 model portfolios. One's called Beat the Global Cannabis Stock Index. Can you guess what I'm trying to do there? Beat the Global Cannabis Stock Index. And then the other one's called Beat the American Cannabis Operator Index, which is focused on mainly on American U.S. cannabis companies that actually grow and or sell cannabis. And in the Global Cannabis Stock Index model portfolio, which is down 1.8% per year this year, which is better than the 9% loss in the index, so it's doing the job. This week, it was down 1.1%, which is a little bit better than the overall market. And then in Beat the American Cannabis Operator Index, that one's not going as well. This week, it was down 2.1%, which was a little bit worse than the index, which was down 2%. In year to date, it's doing worse. It's down 9.5%, and the index is down 1.3%. But I have a secondary goal here. I want to beat MSOS. And I know MSOS has trading costs and all that, and I don't factor that in. But I don't think it's that much. And this year, so far this year, MSOS is down 10%. So it's down a little bit more than me. And, honestly, I have Lowell Farms. That's a big problem. All right. Finally, I want to go over the calendar for this week. There was a late change on Friday, and I caught it for the written piece that's linked in the update to this video. I'll tell you that in a moment. It was Planet 13's earnings call. So Monday, High Tide hosts its call in the morning during trading hours. They did release their numbers after the market closed on Friday. On Tuesday, StatsCan is going to release the January Canadian retail cannabis sales. On Wednesday, Vext Holdings, woo! I don't think it matters, but they report their Q4 and host a call before the market opens. And finally, Thursday is a busy day. Acreage Holdings and Charlotte's Web will host their fourth quarter calls during trading hours in the morning. And Planet 13 is going to release their Q4 results and hold a call after the close. So that's really it. Like I said, there's a written piece that I link in the summary to this video, YouTube video. And you might want to look in that. There's more information than what I just went over. Have a great week. Take care.